Today is Friday, September 1st, 2017, also known as Force Friday 2, which is just a fancy marketing campaign that Disney has going on, launching new Star Wars products and things like that. Anyway, it's an interesting day. Today is the beginning of a new journey for me. I'm 41 years old. I'm 3 years divorced. And I've spent the last 41 years of my life searching for something. I can look back and recall really life-changing moments along the way. When I was 8 years old, when I was 11 years old, 16 years old, numerous moments in my 20s, 27 years old, 35 years old, the 41 years old. The list goes on. And over the course of this journey that I'm going to be documenting, I'm going to talk about these moments in my life that have helped to shape who I am today and hopefully where I want to go. Along the way, part of what's been such life-changing moments have been driven by other people that I have interacted with, either real friends or family members, or people I've never met face to face, but who I've read their work. People like John Eldridge, E.W. Kenyon, Kenneth Copeland, and most recently a man named Dr. Robert Glover. In the last few weeks, I read a book of his called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And, throughout the course of this journey I've been on, I've gotten so many pieces of my life's puzzle, my own identity, my purpose, my priorities, all these really, major elements of what make you you, I've gotten along the way. And this book has really turned out to be what I'm calling the sort of final piece of the puzzle of who I am and who I want to be. It's been a really incredible, revelatory insight. Let me tell you about it for a minute. So, essentially, in a nutshell, Dr. Glover, through his 30, 40 years of therapy and counseling men, he has developed this diagnosis, if you will, and then beyond that, a curriculum around helping men become cured of this diagnosis. And the diagnosis he calls the nice guy syndrome. And basically what it is a masculine version of people pleasing. Lots of authors have, for decades been talking about people pleasing. Brene Brown, Joyce Meyer has a great book called, The Cure for the People Pleaser, or something like that. And there's been a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists who have written books, and there's lots and lots of talk about people pleasing. Dr. Glover's perspective is targeted specifically at men, and how there seems to be an epidemic of men who are sensitive or gentle, who aren't what has stereotypically been called the alpha male. How these men oftentimes get caught up and develop what he calls the nice guy syndrome, which is essentially people pleasing. And in doing so, they lose their identity. They are so caught up in making sure that they are who they think others require them to be, they no longer know who they are. And they're afraid to know who they are, or they're afraid that if they were really genuine, no one would love them. No one would accept them. Now, any of you that have done any work in the people-pleasing area of psychology knows everything I just said applies to any people-pleasing sort of dysfunction. But specifically how it relates to men, and especially these guys that he calls the ones with the nice guy syndrome, is that they end up majoring up on people-pleasing their wife or their girlfriend, the woman in their life. And so the approval of that woman is paramount to their happiness, which is something else we call codependency. They're dependent on their wife's happiness for their own. And there's we could go into great detail, and obviously the book does, but I'll say this. Part of the problem with that is it's a delusion, and this is what makes it a dysfunction. The happiness of their wife will not actually result in their own happiness. They only think it will. And there's a lot of reasons for this, and it has to do with child rearing and the way they were raised and all this kind of thing. But the bottom line is this book exposes that syndrome for what it is. And for me, it was the last remaining element that I was ignorant of. I never dreamed that my own pride in my self-control and my seemingly inability to get angry, my unwillingness to ever be directly critical of anyone, and my really unwillingness to ever really ask directly for something I want, was wrapped up in this nice guy syndrome. Really, it was fear about not being loved. That if I were to ask for what I want, or to tell someone the honest truth, even if it was something that they didn't want to hear, that they would still love me. They would still like me, even if I said something they didn't like, or if I did something they didn't like. Now, I've discovered that that was not true. I would still be loved and liked. But the other major pillar of this book talks about self-approval. That at the end of the day, whether I'm liked or loved by someone else really doesn't matter. Is Stephen okay with Stephen? Am I at peace and centered in my own integrity about what I'm saying, about what I'm doing? I'm going to give you a couple examples of how subtle this can be, and how it can control your own life. And it also it creates this control mechanism in the nice guy to try to control others. So, for example, I'm thinking about making a post on Facebook. While I'm thinking about the post, all I'm thinking about is how is this going to be received by everybody that reads it. Are they going to like me? Are they going to not? Are they going to agree with me? Are they going to not? Are people going to think I'm crazy? Are people going to think I'm not a Christian? Are people going to think... It is all wrapped up in... I run through 1,000 possibilities about what people might think about what I'm saying. And I've looked back now over my 41 years of my life, and I realize that I've done this my whole life. And I actually saw it as a virtue, as part of what made me such a wonderful guy, was my willingness to be so considerate of others. And all the while, I was being terribly inconsiderate of myself. And it is a lie. If I say something because I'm thinking about the end result of how someone will respond to me, that's a form of control. I'm doing and saying what I'm doing to get that person to do or say the thing I want. So even though it's shrouded in this illusion of selflessness, well, I don't want to be selfish by, saying I want something, can you give this to me? Because then I'm thinking about me. So I'm going to think about them instead. But what happens is, in my thinking about them, subconsciously, I'm still wanting to do or say the things to get what I want from them. I want to get a smile. I want to get a positive response. I want to get an affirmation. I want to get validation. And see how subtle that is? Now, let me pause and say there's nothing wrong with wanting affirmation, validation. There's nothing wrong with wanting to elicit a smile or a positive response from someone. Those are things that are perfectly healthy to want. The problem is, if you're willing to get it in a disingenuous way. I didn't believe that my own worth was enough, that if I was just myself and said what was on my heart, that I would ever get the positive response, or that I would ever get the affirmation or validation that I wanted. And I will say that when you've risked it and been yourself, and it's elicited a terrible response from people that you care about, or if you've been torn down or run down by people for being yourself, fear will motivate you to hide yourself because you don't like that feeling. But when you realize and wake up to the reality that the approval of other people is not necessary for my own happiness and self-worth, it removes that piece of the fear. Now, I still don't enjoy being run down by someone or told that I'm an idiot, or nobody does. But since I have made a decision to let go of that person's opinion of me defining me, it hurts way less. And I can more freely appreciate them and love them for who they are, even if they say or do something I don't particularly like. Because I'm no longer needing them to be a certain way or say a certain thing in order to be happy and fulfilled. So that's where this video comes from, and this journey that I'm talking about. I've really hunted and worked really hard to try to figure out what I want to do. I'm inspired a lot by people who are telling their story and showcasing their story online, vloggers and inspirational people, and I want to be a part of that. And so I've been thinking, what do I have to offer that's unique? Well, let me just tell you this. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what this journey is going to produce. I don't have an end goal. I don't have a place I'm heading, other than to self-worth, identity, purpose. I'm not all clear on all those things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to every single day. Gosh, I'm really trying to commit myself to absolutely as often as possible, numerous times a day, even if it's for 20 seconds, basically chronicling my journey and being raw and being open and not having to have a perfect video made and not having to have all the right things to say, but just talk and just share thoughts and the process I'm on. I want to be healthier in my body. I want to be healthier in my business life and finances. I want to be healthier in my career. I want to spend my time doing the things that mean a lot to me, and I want to be around the people that matter to me. And I am just going to start talking about this journey, and I'm inviting anyone who wants to sort of witness it and engage with me in it and comment about it and talk about it and give you guys an inside view of the journey I'm on. It may be interesting, it may not, but I'm no longer dependent on anyone's approval or anyone liking what I'm doing or valuing what I'm doing or could care about what I'm doing. It's not about that. This is for me. It's a practice for me. So created this Facebook page called Walking in the Daylight. We've got a YouTube channel, Walking in the Daylight, Twitter feed, the whole deal. And so I'm simply going to chronicle and record this journey of walking in the daylight. You know, and the word daylight, you know, is a play on my last name, and I've always used that for various things, Daylight Technologies, Daylight Ministries, and so I like it. And that's what I'm going to do, is basically just record this journey in the light, toward the light. And part of this process is me fully discovering the light on the inside of me that I want to come out so that I can ultimately be a force for good in this world. So come along with me. Let's learn and grow together. And I'll see you on the other side.